if you're like me, who's constantly on YouTube, you might have noticed that the algorithm has struck again. This time, you might have seen some of the I Don't Dream of Labor and all the pretty privileged videos. So with this, I actually wasn't going to react to it till Stepco released one of her latest videos of the difference between a high value man and pretty privilege. So let's jump into it.
Hello YouTube, welcome to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to be discussing something that I saw on the internet a couple days ago, and it got me to thinking, about my own messaging and like what I'm putting out and how different corners of the internet are interpreting that messaging, and how some are interpreting it completely incorrectly. So I received this picture via DM. I don't know exactly where it was posted, but I do know that it was out there, and I'm assuming that it's because when my video about pretty privilege was making the rounds, it was being picked up by a lot of different corners of the internet. This is one that really interests me. It's interesting to me because it's a take on the situation that shows that somewhere out there on the internet, people are very, very confused. So the first thing that I want to say up front is that the concept of having a privilege based on anything that is outside, whether it's body privilege, white privilege, or pretty privilege, is a superficial thing that has very, very real ramifications in everyday life, okay? However, the concept of a high value man can be superficial, but the origins of it and what it actually stands for is actually the opposite of that. I started to see some ones that were really, really hard to watch, but I quickly decided, okay, whatever that content is, it's not for me.
I want to stop right there. On that point she just made, that I saw the content, just kept it moving, it just decided it wasn't for me. I love that statement. We need more people who are willing to separate the internet content from reality and what affects their day-to-day life. Why are you submitting yourself to information that you know you don't agree with? So I really love that she pointed out that, look, I just took it. Look, hey, it is what it is. It's not for me. I'm not gonna stay in it. So I think that's dope.
High value seems like another version of pick me. Does that make sense? So if you don't know, there's this, people would classify pick me's as somebody who, bragged about how they like to cook 3 meals a day for their hubby, and how they like to iron all his clothes, and how they're never over emotional, and how there's a whole bunch of content out there in the world, a whole bunch of, videos and things you can read about the concept of a pick me. So when I started to see the term high value man everywhere, I was like, that sounds like men who are pick me's. Here's how I'm better. But then I did some research into what a high value man actually is supposed to be. According to Google, there are 10 traits of a high value man. Okay, so I love this particular article, and of course, while I'm reading it, it's up on the screen, but I'm actually researching it as I do this video. I'm looking at this again. So a high value man is emotionally intelligent. He has a purpose. He takes care of himself. He has high self-esteem. He generates his own self-esteem. He is assertive. He knows power dynamics. He is honest to his own value system. He has a growth mindset. He takes responsibility. So when I saw that article, and when I was consistently looking online, like I didn't watch any YouTube videos about it because I'm scared, but I did read about it. And over again, the concept of a high value man was based on the man's mindset and based on how he uses that mindset, which is a lot of positive thinking, how he can go out and make the world better for himself and other people around him. I love that. I love that.
Again, great point. She initially imagined what she thought a high value man was. Instead of just going off of assumptions that she didn't educate herself on, she actually went and did the research to try to understand what this concept is. So number one, she seems like a really empathetic person, just from what I've seen. A lot of people in general just take what they see for face value and just not even take the time out to properly educate themselves on, okay, where did the origin of all of this mess come from? What does it actually mean? And for what it's supposed to represent, is it being properly communicated to the masses? So again, another kudos to you, Steph, for actually doing that research.
Concept. I especially love when they talk about a high value man being emotionally intelligent. That is so important. What kind of makes me sad when I read that is a lot of the men that I see that ascribe to this and ascribe to this thinking and ascribe to, that corner of the internet where they talk about that and they boast about that, they don't really show emotional intelligence. Because a lot of the times they spend their time tearing down women and trying to prove why they're so much better than women who would attempt to approach them. And honestly, just FYI, these are just things.
Another good point. Really, from what we've seen since the infamous video, really not even infamous anymore, the famous video, average at best, all of these different denominations underneath the manosphere. You have the red pill, you have black pill, you have men go their own way. All of these different guys in their own respective element. They all conduct the way that they spread their message in totally different ways. This has opened up the gates to a lot of dudes who are essentially going against what the original idea of being a high value male or being in the manosphere really entailed. It was never about getting in your feelings or getting outside of your masculine frame and start bashing women, giving death threats to women, all these different things. It was never about hating women. One of the main reasons why you joined these communities was because you wanted to get better at meeting women. And unfortunately, we've allowed too many of these just super emotional guys who got other issues just outside of women to really just plague not even the community, but the internet, which has essentially brought up a lot of these conversations that we're seeing today. So again, really good points. I'm liking what I'm hearing so far. I really want to hear what she's about to say about this because I might disagree with some of these points.
Let me get back to my point. Comparing the two ideas is problematic because it implies that for a man, all it takes is having a positive mindset and making sure you make yourself to be the best you can be. And that self-work is comparable to a woman just being beautiful and receiving certain things because of that beauty. It's problematic because it completely ignores a patriarchal system that made it possible for men to pursue self-improvement and be considered as worthy by all, but for women to be initially considered only worthy if they look a certain way. To me, it's giving very much, this is true for me, but this is true for you. It's inherently unequal. Also, I want to say that a lot of times when people talk about a high value man, they really focus on that concept of value. And it's not just a metaphorical social currency in their minds, it's like a real currency. So I have seen people take this label and apply.
All right, that was a big point. When it's gonna step back to what she initially said about basically just attacking the patriarchy. So I understand where she's coming from and completely agree that pretty privilege and being a high value man, two completely different things. If we're going to be completely honest about these, the result with these two are inherently going to be the same. Majority of the time, a super attractive or beautiful woman who has utilized her privilege in certain areas can have similar rewards as a high value man. A woman who has utilized her privilege to get into certain ranks, her attractiveness to get into certain ranks, get into the right social groups. And once they're in those groups, they're inherently the one that are adored by men and women alike, and is essentially seen as that woman to look up to. And again, not to discredit what she's saying, but there are still some different things to where I can see how someone can literally reach with that topic if they go along that route. But again, overall, two completely different concepts.
Really, anybody that has money. You know, for me, I'm guilty of this as well. I know I said it in my video that a lot of times I find myself only being the object of affection of men who don't try to move very far in life. And so as a result, they don't have a lot of resources. But I also did go back and say, for me, what matters most is vision, because a man with vision and a man with real plans is a man who's never poor. And so to me, that's a high value man. But again, a lot of times what I see happening is people consider a high value man to be one that has a lot of money. And as a result, men with a lot of money tend to get away with a lot of terrible things because they're.
I'm gonna stop right there again. This concept of being a high value man, where it's strictly monetary, that's been created on both sides, from both men and women. I don't agree with a lot of the things that Kevin Samuels preached, but I do agree with some points that he does make, and from what I've seen with his shows. But majority of the women that call on there, they're calling for that specific type of guy.
Annually. To live the life you want, to eat, travel, hair, makeup, shopping, caring for family. Come on, give it to me. Don't hide it.
500,000.
All right. What percentage of men earn that?
Huh. Very little.
What percent?
No, I mean, if you're talking all races, I would think.
I just said what percentage of men earn that?
Oh, maybe like what, 7% or something. Not 1%. 1%.
They're calling for this guy who makes his six figures and has a certain type of monetary value associated with them. But it just so happens that the guys with that monetary value associated with them are also the ones who had to go through some of those changing mindsets and having the vision and all those different things. So we also have to remember that that is a result of all of the different things that of that list that she mentioned earlier. And with that result, we have too many guys who are associating the result with the path that it takes to reach that result. I know you can be a high value man without making six figures or without hitting this monetary milestone. I'm glad she brought this conversation up, because in an ideal world, the monetary value that's placed on your financial position wouldn't dictate how valuable you are to society. So this is part one.